Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you all for joining us. So I understand that you all had to take some time out of your busy weekends to be here for this important community discussion, so we really appreciate it. My name is Ali Mohammed. I'll be your MC for this evening. Today's event marks another discussion in our Breaking the Silence series. Today's topic is Unveiling the Silent Struggle, a community dialogue on suicide prevention. After hearing from our speakers, we'll open up the floor for some Q&A, and if time permits, we'll have a discussion for everyone and let them share their thoughts and talk about their experiences. So first, I'm going to share a little bit about our organization. Sukoon is a Minnesota community-based nonprofit. It was born from the organization Dr. Shabazz Charity Group. It's a social service nonprofit, and our aim is to bridge the gap in providing culturally informed resources and mental health services to the Minnesota community. Right now, mental health support and resources do exist in our community. Awareness resources are slowly growing, and we have many Muslim mental health professionals.
Are you guys hearing me? Start over? So, as I was saying, we have many resources for our mental health support in our community. We have many Muslim mental health professionals in the Twin Cities metro area as well. However, our community is still very disconnected from them. Sukoon's mission is to create specialized programming to bring cultural awareness and provide resources to strengthen the health and wellness for our community. Our vision is to continuously address the evolving needs of our community and makes culturally competent, holistic healing accessible to everyone. Sukoon has 3 branches of programming. We have the Sukoon Helpline, the Sukoon Connect Clinic, and Sukoon's Health and Training. The Sukoon Helpline is free and confidential, and is a helpline that's available for anyone who could benefit from an empathetic listener. Our providers, operators, are trained to provide support with suicide prevention and mental health crisis intervention, assistance with coping, and referrals to all kinds of resources. You guys? Hello? Good. Okay. We also provide referrals to all kinds of resources for further assistance. Anyone can call the line between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., 6 days a week from Thursday through Tuesday for anonymous and free support. We encourage each of you to take a flyer with the helpline over there and a picture of it and put the flyer somewhere visible so people around you can benefit from using this resource. Secondly, we are developing the Sukoon Connect Clinic. So I'm going to ask you all a question really quick. How many of you, you can raise your hands if you've done this, how many of you have done a virtual visit or a doctor's appointment online? Yeah, okay. So that's exactly what the Sukoon Connect Clinic is. The vision behind it is to create a virtual behavioral healthcare urgent center so people can connect immediately to somebody who is culturally informed and can provide people within our community with support. Right now, Sukoon is in the process of developing this program, and we'll keep everybody informed as we start to build it and make it available. Third, Sukoon has education and training to promote mental health literacy in our community. We do that by offering professional mental health first aid trainings, as well as community discussions such as this one, to provide the community with a platform to share their stories, talk about their experiences, validate their experiences, and for people to know that they are not alone in their struggles. This is our 5th Breaking the Silence series, and we would love to continue to provide the information and space for discussion on topics that are often misunderstood or swept under the rug. Today we are joined by 2 panelists who share the same passion for this topic as you. They are here to provide their unique insights and viewpoints on the subject. I would like to introduce our first speaker, the Habbe Yusuf. Dhabe Yusuf is a compassionate and dedicated therapist who specializes in working with individuals who have endured trauma or significant life stressors. She employs evidence-based therapeutic approaches, including trauma-focused therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, and Islamically integrated psychotherapy to facilitate healing. Holding a bachelor's degree in psychology from Augsburg University and a master's degree in counseling psychology from St. Mary's University, Dhabe is a strong proponent of holistic well-being, holding the belief that true healing involves addressing all aspects of a person's life. Please welcome Dhabe Yusuf.
I'm just going to try to project my voice. Please let me know if you can hear me. Assalamu alaikum. I just want to say Jazakallah khairan for the invite. This is a very important topic to discuss. I'm actually looking forward to it, to kind of give you just a little bit of background educational. Can you hear me? Can you hear the mic? Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. So just kind of give a little bit of background on what the suicide itself means for individuals and families who do experience the grief process and the impact that it has on individuals. Part of my topic today is just kind of give you this educational background on what suicide is, and then my panel partner here will be able to go in depth in the other aspect of it. Does anyone know about the number of people in the past year committed suicide? Give me a number, shoot out.
250,000.
200? That's a big number.
You're talking about US or you're talking about
Just US.
just US?
During COVID too.
So you mean the year or the 3 years?
Just 1 year.
Just 1 year?
Yep.
Maybe 100,000.
A little bit of that, half of that. 50,000. 50,000 people took their life in the past 1 year. And worldwide, it's about 800,000 people committed suicide. That means that people collectively are struggling. They're not speaking about it, they're not talking about it, and they don't even understand themselves how to talk about what's going on with themselves internally. And imagine trying to talk about it to a family member where mental health is being stigmatized and not have a conversation around when suicide ideation starts, which means that people thinking about the purpose of living is no longer having meaning for them. So part of our today's conversation to just kind of put a spotlight on this issues, making sure that we create a safe space for everybody to talk about their issues and not have any negative implication for their experiences. Because suicide ideation looks different for everybody. For a man, it looks different. For young kids who are trying to develop, understand themselves in this society, trying to grow, is different. For women, it's different too, because their experiences are biological, psychological, emotional, environmental, aspect for all people. So, part of our conversation to just kind of ignite how often people commit suicide too. And every 11 minutes, 1% commits suicide. As we sit here, me trying to talk about it, there's somebody out there contemplating whether their purpose of living it matters to someone, right? At the end of the day, we all want to be seen, want to be heard, want to be noticed, and want to feel part of a community that we feel belong to. And if you don't feel that belonging, what do you think is going to happen in terms of right? You start to experience sadness, worry. What is my point of living here too? Sometimes even religious people, and the sad thing is that according to Dr. What's her name? I forgot her name right now. But her name's in my mind. If I don't remember, I'll recall it at the end of it. But according to this doctor, a Muslim doctor, she's also a psychiatrist, and she talked about ways that Muslim communities suffer the most in the most of the religion in the U.S. Muslim community experience more suicide ideation than any other religious group. What does that say for us, right? What do we do? What are we running after, right? Just religious practice is not the only aspect of living. What are the emotional practices? What are emotional understanding for one another that we're not doing for one another, right? So Part of my understanding is to kind of just spotlight on a little bit of the risk factors that may include on the impact of suicide. One is that to understand individuals are suffering. There are things that will contribute to the suicide ideation. Sometimes it's mental health, undiagnosed mental health, untreated mental health, that they are not being able to talk about it, to discuss about it, and they don't know who to go to and say, you know what, I'm struggling. I'm struggling, that I need help, right? And then the other aspect is the emotional suffering, right? The bullying that happens within internal families, right? Families can make comments that might be really harmful and not realizing the implication of that word and how that word resonates with that individual. And understanding that, and how do we try to communicate better so that we're not emotionally harming them. Aspect of this chronic illness, right? When people are experiencing such a severe pain physically, they're not able to express, living doesn't make any sense anymore. The purpose of living kind of reduces, even though their level of life is good in other aspects of it, but the pain makes it difficult for people to ignite the idea of living. It seems to be the highlight of it. And the other aspect is that isolation. We don't have connection, communal connection anymore, the same way we used to. We don't rely on one another anymore. There is so much of like, oh, this person happened, blah, 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 and I don't need this person anymore. That it's easier to call one another than easily to rely on one another. And that also has been aspect of negative implication to individuals and trying to understand ways to evolve their community itself. Other aspect of risk that occur to individual is that bullying for young people. In their middle school, I know kids, I used to be a madrasa teacher, I know young girls who come to me explaining their situation and how within their Muslim girls there is cliques. And those cliques are starting to make comments. And so those comments has internally affected them in the wrong way. And they contemplate this aspect of it, but who do they go talk to? Because their safety environment in their house is not like mom and dad. I feel like my friends who I spend the weekend with are bullying me. And is there a way that you can help me? No, but they don't know how to tell their parents, right? How can I tell my mom that I'm harming myself because I feel like I have no space to feel safe? I don't feel safe with my friends. I don't feel safe in a house because my house don't understand mental health. I'm experiencing anxiety. I can barely manage depression that can be problem too. How do I navigate that? Right? There's that too that happens. And the other aspect is just a stigma, right? Suicide. Oh my God, it's haram. We're not allowed to kill ourselves, which is true. But how do we kind of minimize the conversation to talk to one another and say, okay, tell me about your feelings. Tell me what's going on in here. What are some sort of intrusive thoughts that are you having that makes you think this is the only way out? What are some things that I can do to better your life a little bit? How can I ease your heart for you? And asking each other those questions reduce the anxiety, the stigma, the conversation itself. And if you can't do it, other aspect is that, do you need therapy? How can I help you find a therapist who will be able to kind of navigate this emotion that I don't know how to help? I actually don't understand how to be there for you in this situation. But I'm okay to sit in the lobby of the therapist's office and wait for you until that session is end, so that I can be that support system for you, right? And so to kind of ignite that understanding, so I want to go a little bit into the warning sign too. There's active and passive suicidal ideation. So active is like it's happening right now, and I'm going through it. I have a plan, and like I'm not going to be talking to people about it, right? The passive is like you dream about not wanting to be here anymore. Anytime challenges intend to contribute in your life, you go around thinking, you know what? What's the worst thing could happen if I'm no longer here anymore? You know, living here is not easy for me. I have no reason to live. I have nobody. Those conversations intend to have a negative effect on ways to understand ourselves. So usually a lot of people experience passive suicidal ideation. And they don't say it, because where can they say it? The environment is not safe. Nobody's safe enough to tell them, you know what, it's okay to tell me how you feel today. What is going on with you? Is there anything that you want to talk about? This environment is safe for you. right? Kind of expressing those ideas and being able to be that support system for one another. And then the other aspect of risk factors that people are going through is that they see a lot of people talking about it. I think a lot of people minimize the idea how contagious suicidal ideation is. It's very contagious. If you have a friend who's talking about their experiences, and they're kind of always complaining passively about you're eventually going to pick it up. You start thinking anytime life gets hard for you, like, wait, I also feel a certain way about not wanting to be here, right? To kind of have an understanding of that. And then also feeling hopeless about life. Challenges happen, work stress, family stress, societal stress, expectation, jobs, laid off, right? Emotional dysregulation, relationship effect. All of this plays a role in why we feel the way we do, and not feeling that stable is not the way we go for that. Stability is everything that we all crave for. We all want to have a stable life, easier life, like this organization, Sakoon. We want Sakoon life, right? Unfortunately, Sakoon only happens in Jannah. This life is part of the challenges that comes in, and it's difficult. But knowing that I have somebody else taking that burden away from me, knowing that I can go to someone and talk about my issues, knowing that I have somebody that I can express my concerns and sadness and emotional dysregulation that I go through, I have someone that I can talk to, right? And then also part of another thing that we don't understand is that talking about a social support system, right? Part of the sign is that individuals who are starting to experience self-isolation, they will be withdrawn. But there are two kind of people you're going to see who experience suicidal ideation. The one person who is generally like very talkative, bubbly, laughing, that person sometimes is covering up. You cannot dismiss that person just because they're able to joke, laugh. You have to pay attention to that person. The second person is usually a quiet person. That one is also dismissing in the world that we live in. But you still also have to check out that person too. But if you notice, even famous people, the most people who committed suicide publicly that you know are the comedians, the louder, the happy go-getter people that we all think it is. Why do you think that's the front that they put on? Because they mask their life. I want to be able to know that the world know that I'm happy, but I go home and suffer a little. That's that's the warning sign. When you can understand the people in your life, you're like, okay, I can see the changes are happening, the moods are changing, the conversation is changing, the ability of my connection with this person is changing. Okay, I need to check in. I need to have a conversation with them. I need to say, you know what, are you okay? Lately, something just changed with you, but I just can't put my finger on it. Okay, that's a recognition, right? And it's important to do that. And not everybody has that awareness of a skill to kind of tap into that, because guess what? The thing about life is that we all suffer. But the aspect is to notice how to seek out, how to talk to each other, how to take a minute to notice somebody's not okay. And sometimes when you talk to someone who's suffering, you also experience a sense of relief within yourself, because, oh, I'm not the only one that's kind of going through something, right? And that is really helpful. And when you're trying to understand signs, it's good to recognize people's personality. The quiet one, the loud one, the funny one, the joker, all of it. Because we all come in a package. And that package needs to have fully assessed in all aspects. So, I'm going to raise your hand. Great. But I want to tell you a little bit of story that I experienced personally, and then after that I can go into conclusion and have a protective factor and things that we can do to help one another. So 2 years ago, I was working with a client for about 2 years prior to that. And this client, for 2 years, they were really suffering. And their experience of mental health is deteriorating over time. And I'm noticing it. And when I got this person and I'm working with him, I'm noticing that, you know what, there's no hope for me to kind of help him, but I'm just going to try to maintain the situation, right? And in a year and a half in that experience, that individual is starting to have changes. He's engaging, he's talking to people, he's starting to talk to his parents, he's not isolating with their parents at all. And then within that, I see change, we have conversations, he's engaging in our sessions, and not being really like quiet as normal he was. And that gave me hope, because I think the only thing you have in the field that I work in is hope that people will change over time. But you also have to be in their way, their time, you just have to meet them where they are. And so, when I started to see this change occur with him, I'm noticing, okay, he's doing better. He's taking his medication, he's going to his group sessions, he's attending therapy sessions, he's talking to his family. We're good, right? And then, what happened was that the shocking experience that I had working in my field is that was just a phase. Because for a year and a half, all I was seeing is suffering with him. And then 6 months, he's making progress. And that progress gave me hope that he's actually going to have a specific functionality in his life. He's doing well, he got support system, he's doing everything that he's supposed to do in order for him to survive well. And then I get a voicemail from his father on Monday morning. The first voicemail that I listened to was that voicemail when I started my day. And the dad told me that they had an experience happen on Sunday night. And my heart just dropped, right? And I was like, what happened? And so I called the dad back. And the dad said, well, he's in ICU. He's not waking up. He's currently in coma. I don't think we have hope that he's going to wake up. And the first thing I did was call my clinical supervisor and try to consult what happened. I said, this is the phone call that I got, this is the conversation I got, and the doctor is saying that he's not going to survive. And so I said, I'm going to be hopeful. He's going to wake up from this coma. And at noon, I received another call from the dad saying that he's no longer here. So to this day, that as a professional therapist has a severe effect on me. Because you don't know when somebody decides to leave. But you just hope people are listening. You keep fighting for them. You keep fighting that eventually they recognize that they're worthy of being here. They recognize that people care. But also you understand in your level of compassion that they suffer so much in their life, maybe they found peace right now. Right? And it happens with families, because when it comes to grief, it's like, are you able to say, you know what, I see my child suffering. Can I be able to be okay with the fact that they decided that they want to go this way, or can I be okay with the fact that they're no longer here to suffer in the situation? It's a very conflicting grief that happens. And every year, November 23rd, I also grieve this person. Why? Because his life mattered, but I also know that he was struggling. I can acknowledge the two things that happened at the same time in the situation. What does that mean when I'm telling this story? People can try to be okay, but still struggle, not want to be here anymore. But how do we console one another and try to make sense of that? How do we try to support one another when we're grieving, without shaming, without putting each other down, without saying, that's haram, I can't believe this person did this. That's between them and Allah. Who am I to judge what they do? Right? So, that being said, when it comes to finding protective factor, is to acknowledge that we are all in need support. To acknowledge that, to be curious, to ask one another if they're okay. It doesn't take that much of our time to say, you know what, are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? Can I get you some water? Can I get you some food? Do you want to go for a walk? I don't have to talk to you. I just want to be around you. Right? Is to ask, you know what about mental health? Talk about mental health at home. What are ways that we can get therapy connected? I'm not saying therapy is always a solution. It is a solution sometimes. At least to do a little bit of education around it, to kind of give each other support system in that scenario. So that being said, there's a lot I could say about this topic. And inshallah, if you have any question, I'll do my best to answer. But just be kind and be compassionate to one another. And if this conversation is triggering, please take the time to take care of yourself and honor the emotional triggers that's coming for you. And try to give yourself a way to kind of process that too. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Sister Linda. It's 7:55. We're going to take a couple of minutes to snack outside, get ready to do for Maghrib, and we'll be back at 7:15. Assalamu everyone. We're going to continue the discussion. I'm going to introduce our second speaker for the evening, Yusuf Shafi. Yusuf Shafi is a clinical social worker, as well as the CEO and treatment director of Alliance Wellness Center, a culturally informed addiction treatment center in Bloomington, Minnesota. He holds a master's degree in social work from the University of Minnesota and is passionate about enabling wellness for those struggling with their mental health addiction. Yusuf is a licensed drug and alcohol counselor with the Board of Behavioral Health and works as a mental health practitioner with Community University Health Care Center. He is a board member of the Minnesota Trauma Project and Minnesota Recovery Connection. Through all his endeavors, he strives to advocate for communities of color while addressing the stigma that prevents many from seeking support. We welcome Yusuf Shafi.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay, you guys can do better. I'll try again. Assalamu alaikum. Alright, there you go. My name is Yusuf. I'm honored to be here. Every time I get the opportunity to talk about mental health or addiction, I get really excited, especially when it relates to my community and I get to do this in front of my people in my community. I'm very, very honored. So, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. So my background is a lot more than the addiction side, and I've been doing this work for about 8 or 9 years, and what I've learned is a lot of people in our community sometimes don't want to admit that there's stuff going on, and we have this notion of let's just pray about things, which I think prayer is very important. I'm not saying we're in the mosque, so prayer is very important, we just prayed, but I think we should also get professional help. And there's a lot of people that can use some help, but the stigma is so huge that people are struggling badly. And so in the last 4 or 5 years, we have seen, especially after COVID, a lot of people that were overdosing, especially young men. I can talk about the East African community, specifically the Somali community, because that's the work that I do. We have seen a lot of young people that are struggling with addiction. And it's one of those things that we've been to so many janazas, subhanAllah, may Allah grant them Jannah. Say Ameen. And I think a lot of people, we go to the janazah and then we kind of fades away, and then we hear another kid overdosed and another kid died. And all these things are correlated when it comes to mental health, depression, anxiety, PTSD. A lot of these kids that are here, they don't know if they're Somali or they're Muslim or are they black, and they live in a suburb. So there's a lot of confusion for a lot of youth, right? So part of our job is as educators, as community members, as families, as parents, is we have to start talking to our kids. We don't talk to our kids. One thing about Americans that are good at is they talk to their kids. They sit at the dinner table, they talk about their day, what's going on, what happened today in school, who did you fight with, who bothered you, blah, blah, blah. We don't talk to our kids. So let's start talking to our kids, right? And I think also words of affirmation play a big part. And when young people are going through a lot, they don't know who they are, they're struggling with their identity. Let's make sure that we're talking to our kids, and also teach them how much you love them, and then show them how much you love them, and saying to them how much you love them. I think it's so important. Because we grew up in a culture where we came from different countries where oftentimes you don't show emotion, you don't, being affectionate is not something that is big on us. I'll tell you a little story. I have a 4-year-old son almost, and I tell him I love him 100 times a day. And my mom saw that one day, she said, "You're saying too much, I love you" to him. I said, there's no such thing as too much I love you to him, right? So it's very important that we talk to our kids. Words of affirmation is a big part of having kids understand where they came from, and also just being there for our kids. And honestly, it costs you $0 to be kind. That's another thing that's very, very important. The work that I do, people don't want to talk about addiction or mental health, but people are suffering, like this is talked about. The people are suffering because we're so big on talking about other people. We gossip a lot, right? Gossip is a big thing that is really a big part of our community, especially women, no offense, but it's a big thing. Like, I have sisters, I have a wife, I get it. Let's not gossip. If someone needs help, if someone comes to you, someone tells you, hey, I'm struggling with something, help them out. Be kind. Compassion is very, very important. And it costs you nothing to be kind. If you see a kid struggle with addiction or a young woman struggle with addiction, get them help. Like there's a lot of programs, there's a lot of Muslim people that we have that are therapists. We have a lot of programs that are designed to help other people. But I think one thing I want to just end with is for a lot of us to just be open-minded and just to be educated about these issues. We live in a country where there's a lot of resources, there's people that can help you, there's places that you can go to. And the reason why people don't want to seek help is because they're afraid. They're afraid that someone might judge them. They're afraid. We talk about suicide, like, subhanAllah, why are you talking about suicide? Why are you thinking about ending your life? It's like, but this is the reality. People are sick, people are struggling, people are hurting. No kid wants to overdose. All these kids that I know, they want to help their family, they want to be there for them, they want to support them, they want to do all these things. But unfortunately, this is the state that they're in. But let's give them some help. And I will end with that. I will have plenty of time for questions later, inshallah. Thank you.
I would like to introduce our final speaker for the evening, Sheikh Mohammed Ali. Imam Mohammed was born in Somalia. Sorry, can you guys hear me? Imam Mohammed was born in Somalia and has pursued various Islamic disciplines under several scholars in Kenya as well as Minnesota. He graduated from Mishka University with a bachelor's and master's in Sharia and is currently pursuing his doctorate degree in Islamic law. Imam Mohammed Ali currently serves as an Imam of the Abu Bakr As-Siddiq Islamic Center in Minneapolis. He's a dedicated educator and Mardai's community. Sheikh Mohammed.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي بنعمته تتم الصالحات وبتوفيقه تتنزل الخيرات والبركات وبفضله تتحقق المقاصد والغايات وأزكى صلوات الله وتسليماته على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I begin with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most compassionate, the most merciful. It's my honor to be here today, inshallah ta'ala. My role, inshallah ta'ala, as an imam is to speak about suicide or attempts to commit suicide from an Islamic perspective or from the deen. Before I talk about that specific topic, I just want to remind everyone that mental illness, or what we call mental disorders, in the secular societies, if you go back to the Quran, it's not actually a disorder. It's a part of the human nature, it's a natural order. Like for example, anxiety, to feel sad, to feel stressed out. If you go back to the modern psychology, they say this is a disorder. So you're like you need help, you're sick. Categorically, they put you in a different side. But subhanAllah, if you go back to the Quran, we see a complete normalization of sadness, of grief. We have the story of Yaqub, a prophet, a father, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وتولى عنهم وقال يا أسفا على يوسف وابيضت عيناه من الحزن فهو كظيم. And then he says قال إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله وأعلم من الله ما لا تعلمون. Speaks about Yaqub missing his son Yusuf for a long time. Allah says his physical description, Allah says وَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ, his eyes became so white out of huzn, out of grief and sadness. And then he says إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ, that I'm directing my sadness, my grief only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why am I saying this? I say this to say the following. Number one, Islam speaks about the human nature. When we are sad, when we are happy, and anything that could happen to our mind, the state of our minds, any of that, alhamdulillah, you'll find in the seerah and also in the prophetic tradition so much knowledge. The reason that many of us, when we talk about mental illness, we only talk about it from a secular level is because we don't understand our own deen and how our deen talks about mental illness. I give you one example. If you go to the website WHO, World Health Organization, there is a section on mental health. They have one book that they say it's the oldest literature in mental health. It's written by a Muslim scholar by the name Abu Zayd al-Balkhi. The title of the book is Masalih al-Abdan wal-Anfus, on the interest of the body and the soul. Was written a long time ago. So this sheikh has a good understanding of the Quran, has a good understanding of the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was also a physician. He understood a lot about the biology of the human beings. He knew a lot about that. He used his knowledge from the Quran and the Sunnah to write this book. And guess what? We talk about depression, right? He's the first scholar who divided depression into two categories. The internal depression and the external depression that comes from the environment. I mean, it's such a beautiful way of looking at the human being that our Islam teaches us. Many times we think, oh, the sheikh or the imams or the community, like, why? It's a cultural approach to mental health that is wrong. Now the Islamic approach to mental health. Is that clear? The cultural approach needs to be rectified. But alhamdulillah, Islamic approach to mental health is quite clear in many ways. So I just want to say this to remind you that alhamdulillah in our deen we have so much knowledge and wisdom that we can utilize to help if anyone is suffering from mental illness. Without taking much of your time, to go back to the topic of suicide. I have seen as an imam people from the community when I was in North Carolina and also here. People who are just like us, or coming to the masjid praying salah, completely normal if you look at them from a distance. Some of them, subhanAllah, went through severe depression, didn't have the support that they needed, and they end up taking their lives. May Allah have mercy on them. Many times it's really bothers me when the only time we talk about suicide is like, okay, if somebody takes their own lives, okay, can we pray janazah on them? What's the state of their iman? That's the only discussion that we see. But I tell you this, our deen of Islam teaches us that if someone commits suicide out of mental illness, still, we pray janazah on them. We do everything that we do for any other person who died in a natural circumstance, because if someone is taking their lives, they end up doing that, committing suicide, we know that there is a mental illness. We know that there is something that is hidden from us. So, what can we do? What can we do to help those people? I think that's the question. In my understanding, and Allah knows best, it's very clear in the Quran, Allah says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, do not kill yourself. Do not harm yourself. وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, do not put yourself into destruction. Allah is the most merciful. Do not do that to yourself. Islam does not celebrate suicide. It does not encourage people to take their own lives. Most of the times, it is the secular society that tells people, if your life is not good, just commit suicide. Is that true? On the BBC, actually, a year or 2 years ago, I was listening to a debate. In UK, you had this philosopher, professor, whatever, he was teaching people on Skype on how to commit suicide. And people are following him. He's teaching them the steps. So there was an ethical question that came up. They didn't discuss it from a religious perspective, but they were talking, is this ethical? Can we put this person and what he's doing in the public domain? What is he doing? He's telling people to end their lives. So we live in that kind of society. We live in a society that our young people are suffering from mental illness. They can go to any bookstore and they can actually pick up any fiction book that propels them to do those kind of actions. So as a community, what we need to do is two things. And it's found in Surah Al-Balad. In Surah Al-Balad. It is a surah that we read every single day. But subhanAllah, there's so much lessons in the Quran that we read verbally, but we don't understand, we don't apply that in our lives. But I want to bring to your attention two things that the Surah Al-Balad teaches us. That our people who are suffering from mental illness needs. Number one is marhamah, it's compassion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَوَاصُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَتَوَاصُوا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ. Okay, we know that suicide is it's the last thing. It is, if someone commits suicide, you have no chance to talk to them, right? You're gone. But those people who are silently suffering, how many of us are looking for the symptoms? How many of us are reading between the lines? How many of us are trying to understand what the person is going through? I think as a community, we don't have that level of compassion. Compassion is not only when you see someone in a car accident, you go out and you help them at that moment. But compassion is even checking on the person. Saying that, okay, I didn't see you this day, where have you been? Or saying, perhaps I saw you posting something on Facebook. Okay, are you okay? Can we go? Can we have lunch together? Can we talk? Many times we wait. The people who are suffering to come to us. And many times we say, how can I help you? You don't say that to someone who is suffering, actually. So the compassion part, the dear brothers and sisters in Islam, is that if you know any person, a relative, a community member, or anyone who is your friend, either in social media or whatever it may be, that cycle of depression or mental illness, it has its stages. And if you care about someone, you can see the decline in their talk, in the way they talk. Perhaps you see isolation. Perhaps you see some other signals. So the first thing I want to encourage, inshallah ta'ala, to everyone is to have the marhamah that Allah teaches us in Surah Al-Balad, to have compassion to one another. The second thing is talking about depression, which I believe it's real and has different levels. When someone is depressed, they reach, let's say, the apex of depression, what do they feel? I'm asking you. What's the last feeling that a person has before before they end their lives? Hopelessness, right? Yeah. Okay, let's look at how the Quran speaks about hopelessness and how to treat hopelessness. Somebody comes and says, I'm hopeless. I don't think my life will get any better. I'm hopeless. I don't think we'll get any better. If somebody like that comes to you, how do you treat that person? How do you talk to that person? Of course, you take that person to a professional help, to a therapy. That's an aspect of it. But as a community, how can we bring our religion, our deen into this? How can we take this person from being hopeless to someone that has at least some hope? Is by first bringing them to the community. Faith by association, or the iman of the jama'ah. If you're successful in bringing that person out of their room, you bring them to the masjid, you talk to them, tell them about the good things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done to them. You try to challenge their mindset. Gradually, you will inshallah ta'ala be able to build a level of, or at least an element of hope in them. And we know that hope, it doesn't come all of a sudden, it takes time. But they need a mentor, they need someone who can teach them that raja and having iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it gives us hope. If someone is depressed and they're at that level, they're hopeless. How can we help them? Is by bringing them to the masjid. But if they combine being hopeless and loneliness, these are the two deadly diseases. It might not be physical disease, and by the way, we're living in the most loneliest society in the world. Do not look at the social media, all of these fake friends that people have. We are not living in a society that has a meaningful connection with one another. So my understanding is that, Allahu A'lam, is that if someone commits suicide, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they can judge them. But for us, our responsibility should be, how can we help those people before they reach that level? How can we help them religiously? And also, how can we help them in taking them to a professional level? My message to everyone, inshallah, especially to Sukoon, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them in this initiative. I think it's a great program, is to raise awareness among the community, especially when it comes to our deen and how our deen approaches the mental health, how our deen gives us the best remedy when it comes to the body, to the mind, and to the soul. I think that's a task that's upon all of us, and especially to support. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, "La yatamannayanna ahadukum al-mawta li dhurrin nazala bihi." None of you should desire to die. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, even if you have to say something, let's say that you're facing some difficulties, you want to say something, then you should say, "Allahumma ahini idha kanat al-hayatu khayran bi, wa tawaffani idha kanat al-wafatu khayran bi." Allah, grant me life as long as life is good for me, but grant me death as long as death is good for me. But that is a dua. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you have to say something, then at least make that dua. At the beginning of the hadith is the principle: do not desire to die. لا يتمنين أحدكم الموت لضر نزل به. جزاكم الله خيرا. I want to remind you again, we need, for our mental health community and those who work in that, we need marhama, compassion, and we need patience with those people, inshallah ta'ala. We have to be patient with them, and we have to show compassion towards them. جزاكم الله خيرا. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا.
We have some time for Q&A. I'll ask Anis if there are any questions of your own that you have.
I should start. Is there anybody who has any pressing questions?
Any you could answer this, but how do you get someone to admit that they need help? Right, the signs are apparent, it's clear that they do need it, but they're adamant in saying that they don't care.
That's a good question. One of the things that I always say to anyone who is going through mental health, they have to recognize it. The only thing you could do as the person who sees they need the support is the thing that you do a parent does with children. They're not really far away, or they're not really like over hovering on them. You just have to be available enough to recognize to be there for them. And kind of make sure that you are their safe space enough to say, you know what, they're ready to come out and say, okay, I need help. That you're able to recognize saying, okay, cool, let's go. I know place. That's all. Because unless individuals realize they need help, there's nothing we can do as a family member, as a friend, as a neighbor to make anybody change their mind. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot make prophets uncle to become Muslim, who are we to tell anybody to go get help? Right? And so to kind of remind yourself saying, I will be available no matter when you need me. I'll be here. That's it. They just want to feel safe with you at the end of the day. There's somebody in their mind who are able to be understanding of their struggles. I hope that answers your question.
I was going to say, what's the appropriate space you should give that person if they want space?
You have to ask them, be curious though, right? What do you need? What do you need me to do in this situation? If they don't know, that's okay. You don't just kind of keep the distance too far away where you're like calling them occasionally. Just be present though. But the things about human beings is like, let's say for example, a person doesn't know how to express their needs. The one thing you can do is drop off food, right? Or be physically there. Let's go play a game. Let's go for a walk. You don't have to literally do anything. Kind of ignite it as you're the one who needs the companionship, not them. I don't want to go play the ball. I need somebody to come with me. Would you be available? Come on. Like sometimes saying, not taking no for an answer is always a good thing, especially in our community. We're not really good at, we just feel like we're a burden to everybody. We felt that way. Our family makes us feel that way. So asking for help is not even part of our community thing. Imagine somebody who's singly or suffering and saying that, hey, I'm suffering, I need help. And especially if you're talking about your guy friends or your brothers or anyone, especially men, they don't talk about it. The community, just generally the society never made it easy for you guys to share, talk about your pain. And make it easy for you to kind of talk about, you know what, today I had a tough day and I'm struggling ways to express my feelings. What feeling? Shut that feeling down. You know, we talk about it. If a boy cries, what do we say? Stop crying. Let the kid process his emotion and teach him, model that, and it's okay to cry. Because crying is part of releasing the pain that we're experiencing. If you don't cry, you're going to suffer, you're going to keep pushing it down, it's going to evolve over time. And when the time comes up, you're going to explode. And the depression, the anxiety, everything is going to come up, regardless. But how far is the distance? Sometimes you have to be creative, right? You have to take the initiative to say, you know what? I need you to come to this game with me. I need you to go to the masjid with me. I need a company. I can't go by myself. Yeah?
It's going to be a long one. So I really just, introduce myself to the community here. My name is Unveiling. As we were doing this session, I remembered an incident that happened in 2014. At that time, I used to live in Yemen. If you guys are familiar with Yemen, it's my original country. And We lived in the city of Adam, where we have our house, and in our house, my uncle and his wife and 2 kids and 2 daughters used to live with us. So they were renting our first floor. And, my cousin, his name was Musa. He was 16 years old at that time. Yemen is a very religious country, just like Somalia. Think of it, just like Somalia. Poor, but very religious community in there. So, and the masjid is right in front of the house. And Musa used to just go to the prayer every time, Fajr every time, but he stopped school. He stopped going to high school at 16. There was no reason, so nobody really, know why he wanted to stop. So it was a normal day. I was showering after coming back from soccer. And then he went upstairs in the 4th floor and, dropped himself, and died. So it was a really sad incident that happened personally to me. That even made me hate Yemen. It made me hate it. I went back to Saudi Arabia. I got a scholarship and came to the United States. And I have a love for young people. So I went to the University of Miami and did my industrial engineering degree. I graduated in COVID. I did my master's in education. I've been involved in summer programs, STEM summer programs for 4 years. And I've always worked with American kids. So it's been 4 summers since I worked in education, working with kids from 9 years old to 16 years old. So I'm really into education. I love it. Now I'm a science and math teacher at the Lama School in Fredley, Minnesota. And I have a mission for helping young Muslim people tackling the issues of mental health, of depression, of these issues that we struggle with. And I think one of the solutions is to create Islamic activities for kids during not many Muslim families in the state of Minnesota or other states are able to afford sending kids to Islamic schools to implant the Islamic values that we live for. So maybe creating weekend activities that gathers the kids in the community together, not just older people, but also younger people, to listen to them, hear from them. Also, summer programs and camps are effective solutions from my own perspective as an educator. I work with kids every day, 5 days a week, with mostly Somali kids. So I'm really familiar with this issue, and the reason why I came today is because of what happened back in Yemen. And thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair, brother. What's your name?
Al-Mahdi.
Al-Mahdi, barakallah feek. I think the story you shared and subsequent experience that you shared with us is something that we appreciate. One thing I want to say, and this goes back to I think the question that the 2 brothers had. If someone is mentally ill or depressed, they don't come out. They don't say, "I need your help." It takes time. It takes a lot of patience for the person that is willing to help. It takes a lot of time. So be patient. Be patient with that person. Be patient. The help might not come right away. They might not open themselves right away. But just be there for them. Send them a message. Just don't give up. Don't give up. Sabr. Tawasul bis-sabr wa tawasul bil-marhamah. Another thing I want to say, inshallah, Brother Yusuf, we have another commitment, inshallah, so I will be living, inshallah. One message I want to say to everyone: I believe everyone who is here today, you have some sort of interest in mental health, right? I just want to say one thing: do not belittle your role. Each and every one of you can play a big role in helping someone. Many of us, we have the tendency to say, oh, let's look for a professional help. We're always looking for someone else to help. Someone else. Allah, we can be the help. So inshallah, just like Brother Al-Mahdi took the responsibility to help the young kids, and he has a mission that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. We all need to have that kind of vision, inshallah. It doesn't have to be glamorous. You don't have to be professional or open a center or any of that. Just a small help, inshallah ta'ala, will help our brothers and sisters who are suffering from this disease. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us protection from that disease and to help those who are suffering from this disease. Inshallah, I will be leaving, but I want to say to all of you, Jazakumullah khairan for listening. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Supreme, for putting this together. My name is Victor. I'm originally from West Africa, Nigeria. And my biggest thing I'm wrestling with is the elders. How do I put this? I come from my tribe, Yoruba. I gotta watch the way I talk to my father. I gotta watch the way I talk to my mom and the elderly. Obviously, I'm a big, firm believer in mental health. Let me put it this way. My father lost his mom, his older brother, and now his daughter, so my sister. And when I say, hey dad, you okay? I said, okay, what do you mean? And then a few days later he posted, and my father is very silent. He's an ambassador, big guy, bodyguards anyways. But when I checked his Facebook, he has a picture of my sister. So obviously he's grieving. And said, hey dad, how you doing? Okay, what do you mean? I'm the most senior person now. All right, calm down. So, but how do I'm trying to break it to him, in my culture, like you said, you don't cry. And I'm married, thank God, to someone out of my culture, but when I yell at my son, my wife will say, let him cry. This is exactly what we say. Let him process his feelings. What feelings? How do we get to our elders, I think? I don't want to take too much of our time. How do we, with respect, we gotta respect them, we gotta, our culture demands that we respect them. So how do we break it down to say, hey, depression is a thing, anxiety is the thing, grieving is a thing. How do we do that?
Alright, so if I had to answer, I write a book and like sell it and become very rich. I think you make a lot of valid points, and in the African cultures, we have what you said was exactly what I kind of experience or kind of go through. And it's hard, right? Especially for older people, there's different ways of doing things, and I think the most important thing is, I think education. Right? Like, my mom is a good example. Like, we talked about my son, like, telling him how much I love him. And sometimes, like, emotions and, like, showing love or telling someone you love them, kissing your kids, like, that is not something that, I got a lot of love, but I didn't get a lot of hugs and kisses, put it that way. And so I just try to explain to my mom, like, hey, I know you grew up this way, and this is your culture, this is how you were raised in Somalia, but we're in America now, right? And these kids do need love, and they need time. We can't have 12 kids. This is not Nigeria, this is not Somalia. You can't have 12 kids. You can have 12 kids, but you wonder why, how much time do you have? Let's be honest and be realistic. You only have 8 hours a day, you work 8 hours, you go to sleep 8 hours, you only have that much time. And when you have 12 kids, you can't give that much attention to them. So I think that just keep trying and just be patient, and just trying to explain to your dad, like, hey dad, if you need anything, I'm here for you. I know there's different stages of grief, and it looks different for everybody. It looks different for definitely men, African men. And so what I would encourage you to do is just continue to just be there for your dad in a sense, and also just try to educate him and say, Dad, it's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to miss my sister. I know you've been through, I know you lost your mom, I know you lost your dad. and it looks different for you too, right? Because like looking at my life, I think about like my parents and leaving the Civil War back in 1990, 1991, and the trauma that they've been through, right? And then I think about the trauma that I went through as an immigrant refugee coming to America, not knowing English, being at 12 years old, being in an all-white school, coming from Africa straight to Burnsville, Minnesota, where everybody's white, and that was traumatic for me. And then I think about the trauma for the kids that I serve, that are born in America, raised in Plymouth, raised in Burnsville, and then their friend that was born in America died next to them, either got shot or died in an overdose. Now those are 3 different generations with 3 different trauma. It looks different for everybody. So, just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
So apparently, clap. That was really good. Thank you for that. Apparently I have something to say about that. Thank you for sharing and make it relatable for a lot of our parents who are grieving their loved ones and kind of creating a safe space for that. Something that is probably underestimated is that the conversation that you can continue to have with your dad. Like calling him randomly, calling him often, and making sure intentionally you're connecting with him in this process of his grief. Because when father or parents lose a child, it's a different type of grief, the same way that it's gonna have a different grief for us when we lose them, right? And grief comes in a wave of pain. It's like a storm that one day you're doing really well and understand that the world is just kind of functioning, and then all of a sudden the storm is gonna hit you, just like that. And your job as his son, knowing that psychologically we're not emotional people, which we should work on that. I mean, my thing is that I always talk about being emotionally working and understanding your emotional regulation is very important, because you can't get angry, that's an emotion, right? So for me, anger is like, what is it about emotion of yours that is not being met that you're reacting this way? There's something missing for you to be angry. And that anger, when the underlying is what's really going on there, right? So there's no dismissal. I respect the anger, where it came from. But what can I do to help you to figure it out, that anger? So when it comes to grief, we just have to be present. Like they asked those good questions, which I really appreciate, is to kind of be there, call, talk to them, have a conversation about random things. How about a conversation about your children, news, economics? We're all fair. Whatever he's interested in, deep diving in this topic that he's interested in, build connection from that point of view, right? And maybe even do FaceTime more often, right? You don't have to be like, you can be working and just have him available. Let him in your world. Experience your children with you. Because then he realizes, you know what, I have something else to look forward to. Here's a little hope, a glimpse of it I can provide for you, right? So, I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I think what helped is you should share your grief with him, so that you can relate with him, and you would be probably almost on the same page as him.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
Hi, so sorry, I have just one quick little question. It's how to help someone who's aware that they need help, but they're stuck in a space where they want to seek help, but they're also afraid of seeking help. How to motivate them or like give them that extra push without like being extra pushy. Context, like I would sit down with them and I'm like, okay, like therapy helped me a lot. And do you see how like more healthy I am? They would be like, yeah, I see it in you, and I want to be like that. And I'm like, okay, so how can I help? And then they would be like, okay, schedule a therapy meeting for me, and I would do it. And then when it's the day of, they're like, I don't need it. It was just a phase. But then you can obviously see how they're hopeless and they're lonely, and they would go out of their way to be lonely. They would close themselves off, and when you like ask them to, hey, let's go out, hey, come with me, hey, let's do this. That's my first part of the question, and my second part is how to do so without being drained and without being involved too much where it like affects you mentally.
think for me, like in my work, is a very, you know, especially with addiction, like, you know, people, they have some sort of a crisis, or they have, or mental health, they have some sort of a crisis where they're like, I need to make a change, and then the day comes, oh, I'm gonna just party this weekend, and then Monday I'll start Monday. It's always Mondays, and then Monday comes and then something else happens, right? What I would recommend, what I would suggest is for you to have multiple options. So let's say, maybe talking to maybe multiple different agencies that can help that person the day that they're ready. Because sometimes they might not be ready, they might tell you they're ready tomorrow, but then tomorrow comes and they're ready. And then you work all this work where you made an appointment for them, maybe having different options. If they're ready, let's say Monday, they were not ready, but they're ready Tuesday, making sure you have a plan A, plan B, plan C. That's what I would recommend.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry I came from London. I didn't know what was happening. I just thought I'd sit in because it's something about myself, whether it's my friends or people in my circle, I kind of experienced this. To me, there's nobody that doesn't know somebody that's affected at any level. So my question is, I think in general, in our community, I'm saying that mostly East African community, from Ethiopia, was born in a traditional, long story. But there's I guess, our community doesn't receive it in terms of just this topic in general. Whether we go to our recitals or we go to our community centers, it's always kind of like water. It's not a big issue. Is there, and also, again, not to talk about Sakun, there's also some mental institutions or services or providers that say that they are going to help with X, Y, and Z and never end up delivering them, or it's just more of a profit center. I'm thinking in terms of me, I'm raising my own kids right now, and I'm kind of similar to him. I'm thinking like, okay, how do I communicate with my children? Because I wasn't passed down that type of communication, so I have to learn on my own, kind of, you know, figuring out with my life. So, is there, aside from, I guess, taking that person or trying to convince that person to seek help, is there an initiative where, like, I see this as a huge value myself, but is there another level to where you're trying to get mental health professionals who are well versed in this topic to communicate with parents, to communicate with community leaders, to kind of have some kind of like collaboration where it's like, how do I actually talk to my dad, for example? How do I talk to my brother? How do I talk to my sister? How do I talk to my mother in this school? Is there something similar to that that's being done? Because I feel like it has to be just more than just providing the center for that person. In that place, it has to be something more than that. That I don't know how to articulate it, but I hope you guys understand my piece. Just how do we get that in front of the community at large? Because it's not just, it's affecting our community hard. And it's worse because it's almost like COVID. It's silently like affecting, right? But nobody's not like that. So I just hope, I didn't ask for too much, just want to get some clarification.
So I think that's a great question as well. I think one of the biggest things that we need to do is just kind of normalize individually. Therapy is not that scary. If you understand yourself, you'll be able to accommodate other people's suffering. If you can't understand your own pain, you can't be able to accommodate other people. And I think once you learn a lot about your emotional needs and understanding of that, you'll be able to talk to more people because you already have done the work, right? And the work is not something that's one-time deal thing. It's a progress that we continue to have to do to get to know why am I triggered, why am I struggling with an adjustment, why am I having a hard time when things are changed. All of a sudden I'm freaking out, like why are you changing schedules on me, for example? Or why is seasonal depression feels heavy but I can't feel it, like I'm tired, I feel lethargic. I don't have motivation, I'm struggling with that, but I don't know how to name it. All of those things, you getting to know you, and once you do that, you'll be able to talk to your family member about it. Oh yeah, I was feeling this. And sometimes we also feel a lot of our mental health symptoms physically. The headache that we experience, especially migraine, is part of your mental health. It's part of the anxiety, part of the depression. If you have neck pain, that's part of your mental health too. If you have stomach issues, that's part of your mental health too. You forget that the physical reaction that you're getting is a lot to do with the daily stressors that you're dealing with. If the stresses are not being addressed, the pain is going to be there. And our parents, our family, a lot of them, they go through this physical reaction. If you talk to your parents like you're having neck pain, leg pain, my legs are hurting, they're talking about physical somatic issues. Those somatic issues related to your mental health stressors. Sometimes our parents back home have been doing a lot of physical work and been through so much trauma, and that trauma is being reactive to their body as a physical thing right now. So to do that, you have to understand yourself. You have to have a conversation. And sometimes we are also afraid to know, what can I talk about? Nothing. You can just share your week. We don't bite family therapists, they don't bite. We are just any other professional. We don't read minds. We are just getting to know you. The things that I always tell my clients is that if you allow me to be in your world, in that journey, I'll be able to go there with you. But then if you don't trust me, and I'm not in that journey with you, there's no way that I can help you. I don't have any expertise. I have experience, I have the knowledge, but the knowledge cannot be applied without you letting me go there with you. So to have this conversation, number one, we do it here. We take this information, we share it. But we don't stop sharing. It's like a small bite, because this is a big stuff, it's scary stuff, it's new stuff for us. So how do we break it down to make sure that the people are not, accepting of it, to be okay to talk about feelings, because the feelings really matter. And sometimes we have to speak their language, which means that related to Islam. What does Islam say about emotion? What does Islam say about depression? What did Prophet go through when grief happened? What did Prophet go through, what Prophet Yusuf went through when he lost his kids? Right? Talk about it from that point of view and kind of normalize the conversation to be from a place of compassion. And I guarantee you, the heart will hear what it's meant to. You just have to be also open to go there.
I think, having this conversation and just being honest with each other. I think we need more community events like this. Shout out to Sakun for putting together this amazing event. And I think about 5 years ago, we partnered with the Department of Health, and we were able to educate and train imams, sort of like, what are some signs and symptoms of someone struggling with mental health. A lot of people go to mosque, they trust the imam, like if someone's struggling, or the moms or the parents might go trust the imam. So we're able to train the imams, sort of train the trainer. We're able to train the imam so that way if someone is struggling with mental health, and I think that was very effective. And we were able to partner with about 25 mosque imams around. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. In Alliance, like what I work at Alliance, we have a family group once a month, and we talk about these things, like how do you help someone who's struggling, what can you do for them, what are some signs and symptoms of someone struggling, how can you support them, what are, breaking down some barriers and things like that, I think is also important. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. So we do have to close. I would like to thank each of our speakers, Sheikh Mullah, Sister Hafiz, Brother Yusuf, for this informative session. I want to thank everyone here who showed up. If you feel like this is something that is beneficial to you or people within your community, please take some flyers, please take some pictures. We have another event on the 15th. We want to open this up to more people in the community. We want more people to show up and more people to talk about this. So if you have any feedback or anything like that, there was a piece of paper that was passed around. If you put your information on there, you should receive a feedback survey, and we can make this more
informed and directed towards your needs. So thank you all so much for coming, and please drive safe.